right, time for the bottom 10 review. It'll be interesting to see how long this section goes because we either could spend 30 seconds on each team or 10 minutes, but we'll try and not make it too long as we do have things to get done on our Monday nights. So we'll go from 18th down to 9th. So starting with the Kangaroos. Rowie, I'll start with you, mate. What did you make of their season and who are your award winners?
Yeah, we'll try and keep this obviously quick, but everyone sort of set out for them to fail. And their first half of the year wasn't blinding. We'll keep it at that. But obviously their run home was really, really promising. They unearthed a lot of talent. And if you consider the season as a whole, I think Kangaroo fans will be pretty happy with it. We can leave what happened in the first half of the year just in the past because I think that was as bad as it was gonna get. And hopefully, for the careers of this club, the players for this club, they probably won't see darker days than that. So it was really good to finish off the way they did because they were really competitive in a lot of games and provided some really good viewings. So B&F for me, there was actually a few to pick from here. In the middle, one guy that was really consistent all year was Jai Simpkins, so I'll probably have to go with him. He didn't actually, he wasn't my first thought, but after I looked through a few of the stats and everything, he was really consistent in there and probably didn't get a lot of light shown on him. I think a lot of it was more other ends of the ground. But for that reason, I'm going to go Simpkin. I think it was really solid for them. Most improved was my man, Aaron Hall. Brody hates this man, but I think he's one of the best kicks in the comp. I didn't actually realise he's 30. He's a lot older than I thought he was. So it's a bit odd giving a most improved to a 30-year-old. But he's obviously an absolute gun of a half-back in the competition now. He's obviously quick, tacks the ball well, moves up the ground and absolutely delivers it to players on a platter. So definitely got to give it on to Aaron Hall. He's always had the talent, but couldn't quite find the right position for him or get the consistency. Best young player, this was tough. I was talking before the potty with these boys who we have in a few of the segments here, and this one was actually a four-way tie between Taryn, LDU, Big Suv, and Zerha. Probably it's very hard to narrow this one down, but I reckon based on potential and everything else, I'm going to give this to Taryn. I just think he's got so many strings to his bow, such an attackive, dynamic midfielder. He could be anything, so I'm going to land on him.
Yeah,
and I'm rating as well. I think we're doing a rating quickly.
Yep.
Given expectations, I'll give them a 6.5. They still obviously got the wooden spoon. Still, I think they're first in their history. But the second half of the year was enough to definitely lift that rating a lot more than it would have been at the start of the year. I'll give them a 6.5, given they've got a lot of young talent coming through.
Yeah, and just to clear up, we are doing our rating out of 10s based on expectations. So 5 is if they performed exactly what we expected, and then above 5 is, better, below 5 is worse. So if, the team coming last gets a 6.5, don't be like, well, then everyone else has to get above a 6.5. That's not how we're going to operate. And also the young player, we just sort of stipulated anything from 1998 or younger will get the job done. Pilch, how do you see the Kangaroos season, mate?
Yep. So as we've said, expectation was wooden spoon. I think after round 3 or 4, there was a market on Sportsbet saying Kangaroos 0 wins, and it was paying about $2.50. So all that in mind, I actually think they had a very impressive season, and that the fans have a lot to look forward to for next season. As Rowie said, loads of young talent that all improved this year. So I think there's definitely good signs ahead for them. In terms of MVP, I've actually gone Cunnington. Only played, I think, 15 out of the 22 games. But those games that he did play, as Cork knows, as a Supercoach owner, he was absolutely unreal. Probably a career best season for the great man. And then I've given Young Player of the Year and Most Improved to Taryn Thomas. I think he's very underrated now. He, in the latter half of the season, really broke out, and he's pretty much an elite, half forward type player now. So, yeah. And then rating, I've gone 6 out of 10. Might actually be quite stiff, but they did win the wooden spoon. So,
just quietly as well, at the start of the year, they were saying, is this going to be the worst team ever to be in an AFL season? I think at the end of the season, they were saying, is this the best 18th place team that we've ever seen? So the tables turned very quickly for the Kangas, but yeah.
I think the
Yeah,
Gold Coast 8-year stretch are the 8 worst teams.
yeah, it wasn't great. I feel like people were saying that about Adelaide last year as well. It seems to be a
They
thing
say it
thrown
every
away.
year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people go very early. It's like in the Premier League when someone loses the first 2 games or win the first 2, they're all of a sudden premiership favourites and stuff. It's like just everyone seems to relax that they'll win or they'll lose eventually. But yeah, it's a tough one with the rating. I probably agree with Pilch that I'm going to go 6 out of 10. But yeah, it's a little bit stiff. I think the fans have a pretty positive outlook for the future, which they might not have been expecting after receiving a wooden spoon. But yeah, I actually don't reckon many of these teams down the bottom are in like the worst situations, which is a bit of a change up as compared to previous years. My BNF is going to Aaron Hall. He was like in the top 20 for my Brownlow. So he just pipped Ben Cunnington actually in the very last game. So Cunners was leading it pretty much most of the way because I know he missed part of the start of the season. But yep, Hall came over the top of him. Young player. It's a bit of a dodgy one, but he actually is born in 1998. I've actually got Jai Simpkin winning the young player. I know he's not like a rookie or anything, but
Didn't
yeah.
know
And
he
then
was born in that year.
yeah, I'm very shocked. I thought he was like a 1996 maybe, but yeah, it's kind of impressive. And then most improved, I've actually given it to Jack Zeeble. I think the way he adapted to his new role was pretty impressive. I know sometimes people question his impact on the game or his actual like one-on-one defending ability, but to go from being like a contestable midfielder to then struggling as like a third key forward and then settling in a halfback and doing pretty well. I think he did pretty decently. But yeah, shout out to Taron Thomas. He's like second in my young and most improved categories. Just didn't wasn't warranting an award for me. Don't want to get lipped off by that kid in the comments again about talking Taron Thomas. So yeah, shout out to Taron Thomas, great player. But yeah, exciting times, especially the back end of the season for North. They're actually not a bad team to watch. Will happily watch them on any given day. 17th, I believe, the lowest finish in the club's history, although very misleading statement. When I first heard that statement, I was like, so they've never come last, but it turns out it's just because there's been 2 teams added in the last like 10 years, but so it was physically impossible to come 17th, but still an interesting stat, I guess. But arguably the biggest club in the country, Collingwood, down to 17th. Pilch, what did you think of the Magpies season, mate?
Yeah, not great. I think most people would have had them around that 9 to 12 mark coming in. They've ended up 17th. And quite frankly, I don't think there is much to get rowdy about for the fans. I think they're going to have to just cop a mini rebuild at the very least. But as we know, it's the Pies. They will bounce back sooner rather than later. But for now, I'm going to give them a 4 out of 10. And MVP between Crisp and Grundy, but I think I'm going to give the nod to Crisp. I think just more consistent and very underrated. Probably stiff not to be in the All-Australian top 40. And then most improved and young player, once again, same player, Isaac Quainer. I was struggling to find some improvements, some most improves for the Pies, not going to lie.
Yeah, no, I actually struggle for the young player with the Pies, but yeah, I'm probably going to go a bit harsher. I'm probably going to give it a 3 out of 10, and I'm going to include the the off season of last year in that consideration. The way they've absolutely butchered their premiership window and turned into a second last place team in such a short time. For me, it's a 3 out of 10, and like the whole Buck saga was. There was just a lot of drama surrounding the Pies this year. Did they announce a new coach today, Rowie?
I think it was all but confirmed, or it was confirmed. I actually didn't look too much into it, but it was Craig McRae was obviously the name that they were talking about. But yeah, I'm not sure if it was 100% confirmed or not. But yeah, there was headlines about it today that it was going to be him. So I think it's all but confirmed. Yeah.
Yeah, can't lie. Never heard of that bloke in my life, but
I'll be honest, neither have I.
Yeah, there's too many crazy.
Is he the Hawthorn assistant, Clarko's assistant, or is that Mitchell?
I think Mitchell's been the assistant, hasn't he? Because that's where all the sort of controversies have come from. But I'm actually not even 100% sure. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm pulling up
I
the
know
teams at the
Mitchell's
moment.
like, I know Mitchell coaches the VFL team, but I'm pretty sure you can do that and be assistant coach. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've actually never heard of him. But yeah, my awards for Collingwood.
Yeah,
My
he's
BNF. Yeah,
McRae.
there you go. So yeah, under the Clarkson coaching tree, that makes sense. My BNF's actually Taylor Adams. I don't think he played that many games, but he tore up my voting system when he did play, and he just pipped Grundy and Crisp, as Pilch mentioned, who both have very good years. My young player is going to go to Isaac Quain, or I'll be honest, this was really I was really struggling here. I think he got like 2 votes, and then most improved. It's a bit of a weird one because he's been good in the past, but just based on like last year alone, and I'll give it to Jordan De Goey. Really came home with a bit of a wet sail in the last 2 months and was starting to play some decent footy again, which we haven't seen for quite a while. I know last year, like he was suspended, injured, all that stuff, but yeah, good to see him playing some good footy again. Rowie, what did you think of the Pie season?
Yeah, I guess, high expectation or high-ish expectations at the start of the year all went to shit. But, they sort of found a slightly better game plan at the end of the year, and there was some promising signs. They got some good games into their young players. I think they had the most debutants out of all teams of the comp this year, so that was obviously promising for them. So BNF, I agree. I think it's got to go to Jack Crisp. Obviously, most consistent. Had to change his role this year and just play basically full-time mid. Obviously worked for them. He was obviously really solid. He's just been Mr. Consistent his whole career. Most improved, I also had to go in here as well. Just an absolutely rogue call. I'm going to say Jack Magin. I don't know, if he played most games of the year, I think he played like 18 games out of possible 22. So, he basically just doubled his career tally there. I think he just played a few lockdown roles in the back. So good on him, trying to find a career for that weird pill. Best young player, probably Isaac Quaino. I mean, there's no one else really to go there. Just once again, just lockdown role, but slightly smaller. Obviously, good halfback, rebounding halfback as well. So yeah, good on him. I'm sure he's probably one of those safe players you can say will have a 200 to 300 game career because he was obviously going to be a gun and he's getting regular games already. But if you're considering everything, the downfall and then the slide uphill at the end, probably going to give it a 4 out of 10 for the Pies.
Yeah, tend to agree with all that. The Jack Magin call definitely rogue, but yeah, the improved and young player were definitely tough for this one. All right, Gold Coast. Yeah, look, I want to like the Gold Coast, but as anyone who's watched more than one episode of this potty over the season would know, I'm pretty critical of them. I just think for the amount of talent they have on the field, they really just don't get the performance that they don't get the results that they should. And I think some of that should go down to the coaching when we look at turning high talented draft picks into absolute out and out stars. So for me, should go over the off season, but I kind of understand if they don't because I was obviously watched that Amazon documentary over the summer, and he seemed like he had a really good connection with all the players and all that sort of stuff. So there might be more to him than just like a tactical coach, but yeah, for me, them coming 16th with that list is just not good enough. I know a lot of the scrutiny has gone to the Carlton coaching position and their underperformance, but I'd actually argue Gold Coast is a bigger underperformer if we just look list for list personally. So yeah, not a good season. Bit of a step back after last year. Looked like they were maybe priming for a leap into a top 8 launch maybe this season, but they still look a long way from that finals berth. So best and fairest, everyone knows this, going to be probably close to the top 5 in the Brownlow, even though he is ineligible. I don't know. But I think one of them's like you can't read or something, but and one's you are not able to win it. But there you go. I am illiterate and all above. So Took Miller, I actually can't speak right now. Took best and fairest, gone to an absolute another level this year. Always sort of had high raps coming out of his youth career. I think he was the Vic Metro captain, which is always brought up, but good to see him killing it. And also shout out, saw him at San Shiro in Hobart. Jack Lukosius, Young Player of the Year, really starting to find his straps in the competition. Struggled early on, and he's now starting to kill it. Absolute meter eater. Part of my algorithm is meters gained, and he is legit in the top 3 in every single Gold Coast game. I think once last year he got over 1,000 meters gained for the match. So yeah, he's an absolute beast in that area. And then most improved, I've given it to Will Powell. I'm pretty sure he's also young enough to win the best young player, but for me, hardly heard of him last year, and now I had him. Did I have him in my All-Australian? Maybe, potentially, not sure. Rowie, what do you think of the Gold Coast season?
Just about agree with every word you said there, mate. Every year it's turning into Groundhog Day for the Suns every year. So yeah, it's they get a lot of young talent, can't win big games, can't really run out full games. They just fail to deliver really. So yeah, just another mediocre finish of 16th. So. It was just the same old. Like I say, there's more promising signs this year. Took Miller, who's obviously won my BNF, just absolutely stood out. I don't know. I want to get the stat on like Gold Coast All Australians, but he's probably one of the first since Gary Ablett. So he's up there for me. Most improved, Will Powell as well, just because last year was obviously a bit of a nothing player, but obviously he's become a really solid halfback. And best young player. Obviously, Powell could be eligible as well, but I've given it to Lukosius. Throw some light on Noah Anderson as well. He's obviously a gun. Not many people recognise him ever since he got drafted because he's playing for Gold Coast. But obviously those two there. Sucks to not put Matt Rowell in there, but obviously couldn't really find his form this year. It was disappointing given the start to the year he had last season. So for that, I'm going to give him a 3 out of 10. I was expecting them to rise up the ladder this year with all the talent they've got, but they actually went basically backwards. So hopefully they can do that next year. But look, if it's another Groundhog year, then we'll be saying the exact same thing, won't we? So yeah.
Yeah, I forgot to do my rating. I'll give them a 3.5 out of 10. Rowie, did you give them a rating, or do you want to do that?
I gave him a 3 out of 10. Yeah, I'm going to put Ben King in there as with the best young players. I'll make it a 3-way tie. That
deserves a mention after his goal haul. Pilch, final touches, mate. Who are your Gold Coast Award winners?
Yep, you boys have hit the nails on the head. I just want to add that from my point of view, they just lack players that have winning experience. No one's doubting the talent they've got, but I think it's time to stop just having 3 top 10 draft picks and start spending them, just bringing in some experience. I know it's risky when you're 16th and you're not going to the draft, but to me, that's what they're lacking. And I think they need to get that done. But yeah, shocking season, 4 out of 10, probably generous. MVP took Miller, obviously. Young player, 3-way tie between King, Powell, Lukosius, all the names we've mentioned. And then most improved, they had a few, but I've actually took Miller just because he went from a borderline A grader to one of the best players in the comp.
Yep, very understandable. Yeah, I completely agree with your chat about the draft. And there's, just looking at this bottom 10, there's quite a few teams that I think would snap your hand off for another first round pick, looking at like Richmond, West Coast, even Collingwood, and they've got Hawthorn as well. They've got quite a few high quality players who you could get in return. And
I think Gold Coast did
Lockie
say they were going to offload their first pick for some experienced talent. So yeah, I think it was like tall forward to help Ben.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I know you mentioned Callum Coleman Jones in your when you did your off season needs, but maybe could get him and maybe someone a little bit better. Yeah. But no, it's a fair call. Wouldn't mind seeing the big CCJ up there. So yeah, that's going to be one to watch. I'd love to see Toddy and King is the 1-2 punch. All right, on to the Crom. Back to Rowie, I think it is. Do you want to let us know your thoughts on the Adelaide season?
Sure thing. So obviously last year for the Crom wasn't fantastic. This year was obviously expectations are probably the same, but look, they probably exceeded them. They were really good. The Crows, they used. I always bang on about this, but that Adelaide Oval is a fortress when you've got the crowd behind you and it's your home game. And the Crows really use that to their advantage and cause some upsets, especially early on in the year. Most notably Geelong in round one. So, all in all, I think it was a good year for the Crom. Just continuously blooding some new young talent, and they're all showing really good signs. So to notch up, how many wins was it? It was my maths isn't ideal here. I think 7 wins. Is a pretty good return for a team that was awful last year, and straight back into competitive mode this year. They took it to just about every team in the comp. They never really got blown out. So yeah, it was definitely really good efforts from them this year. BNF goes to Rory Superman Laird. He's just an absolute freak in the middle. Not much else to say. I think he was pretty stiff not to get an All-Australian spot, but if he was playing in a better team, then he would have probably had one of the spots. Most improved. There's a few here, honestly. I'll go with Paul Seedsman and Benny Keys. I love Benny Keys. He's an absolute freak, I think. And Paul Seedsman, he's obviously also stiff not to make All-Australian. Best young players, Jordan Butts and Phil Thorpe. Butts held down just about every key position player in the comp. Never really got a big bag kicked on him. So that was obviously really promising. And Phil Thorpe to kick 5 at his first game was obviously unbelievable. So honestly, given the expectation, I'm going to give the Crows a 7. They were obviously going to be. I know they still finished like 16th or 15th, sorry. But yeah, look, even the season they were expected to have, coming out with 7 wins and it was more so being competitive with just about every team, I think was awesome from them.
Yeah, tend to agree with everything you've said there. Pilch, what do you make of the crosstown rivals season, mate?
Yep, Rowie put it exceptionally. Very similar review to North Melbourne. Definitely exceeded expectations and a lot to be excited about next season. And I'm actually a really big fan of Matthew Nicks. I think he's a great coach and I can see them, pushing for top 8 over the next couple of years again. So well done to the Crom. And all my players were the same. Laird, MVP, Jordan Butts, best young player, and Ben Keys, most improved. And then rating 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm going to go a 6 out of 10 as well. I actually have 3 completely different award winners. That's the beauty of the algorithm. But yeah, I've got Ben Keys winning the BNF. He actually finished above Ollie Wines in my Brownlow, which is not sure what that's saying, but it's saying something weird. Sam Berry, best young player, never really lit it up in any game. Really good tackler and hates kicking the ball, but he's not bad. Decent inside player.
Loves the first quarter.
Yeah, he loves a 6 handball first quarter for sure. And then most improved, obviously shit bloke, but Tex. He was arguably one of the worst players in the comp last year and made my All-Australian team. So fair to say improved. All right, moving on to the mighty Hawks. I was going to say beloved Hawks from Pilch again, but I won't do that to him this week.
I hate the Hawks.
Pilch. Yeah, I know. That's why I pulled out. But Pilch, what did you make of the Hawks season?
Yeah, just kidding. I don't hate the Hawks anymore because they're bad now. But once again, actually a positive season. I think I actually tipped them to win the Wooden Spoon over North Melbourne. So they've clearly surpassed that, and especially toward the end of the year, some big scalps, probably more due to the fact that Clarko was leaving. So they started, I don't know, playing like Essendon 2012. But MVP, Tom Mitchell, and then best young player, Dylan Moore, extremely underrated. I'd take him over Tom Papley, and Tom Papley made the All-Australian team. So there you go. And I've got Moore for most improved as well, and a 6 out of 10 for the rating.
Yeah. Shout out to Dylan Moore. He actually does commerce at Monash, because the exam rooms are set up in alphabetical order, and my mate, his last name is Morris, so Moore would always be between me and him. Obviously, a couple of people in between, but so we know him well, fair to say. But yeah, Hawks, decent year. I know Curtis loves bragging on about it, but they do have a very exciting back six. Still not convinced that any of them are actually defenders or can defend, but they are good at going forward and is a good launching pad. Seems like Mitch Lewis is a pretty decent tall forward. They've got good like ruck craft with Ned Reeves and the Segler. Not sure if the Segler is leaving, but pretty much every ruckman they put in did well. Big Dick Segler. What isn't it? Big Dick McAvoy? Oh, I don't know. They've all got Big Dicks. That's real.
It's Big Dick Segler.
Yeah, fair enough. But my BNF is actually going to go to not the forgotten man of the AFL competition, but Jager O'Meara. I actually think had a really good year. Yeah, for some reason he polled a lot better than Tom Mitchell for me, which I was surprised at. But fair play to Jager, young player. This guy could have played 3 games. I have no idea, but he's picked up 7 votes. So Will Day, obviously a gun young player. So I don't think anyone's gonna like say he doesn't deserve to be of that caliber. But obviously CJ and who did Pilch just say? Completely forgotten.
Dylan.
Oh yeah, Dylan Moore probably deserve it more. But yeah, see, I gave CJ my most improved, even though we hadn't really seen much of him before this year. No one was really expecting him to come out and tear it up like he did. So fair play. And I'll give them a 6.5 out of 10. Shout out to Scrim. Rowie, what did you make of the Hawk season?
Yeah, obviously expectations weren't that high this year, but they were just the worst team to tip, the Hawks. The week where you thought, sure, they can't win this, they come out and pump them by like 5 goals, and then you finally decide to tip them, and then they play worse than the Crom last year. So they were a nightmare to tip, but I guess it always made games interesting. So BNF got to give it to Tidge. I brought him in for danger straight swap week 1 of Supercoach, and he was a nightmare for about 2 months. But then he finally started coming good and started becoming a player everyone wanted. So all in all, I don't hate him anymore. So yeah, BNF's got to go to him. Doesn't take much to probably win the best and fairest of Hawks. So a few 40 disposal games, he can have it. Most improved, I actually think I won't drop Dylan Moore's pants, unlike these two. So I'll give it to Blake Hardwick. I think he had a solid year for the Hawks. Obviously stood up with a team that probably needed a few blokes to step up, going through a little bit of a mini rebuild. So he was really solid for them down back, providing a bit of leadership as well, I think. So good on him there. Best young player. Obviously, I'll throw Dylan Moore's name in there. Obviously, really good pressure forward there. Racks up a lot of stats. I'll give it a 3-way tie as well to, I think, 3 halfbacks. So Scrimmer, CJ, and Lockie Bramble as well showed a lot of promise at the end of the season. So good on him. And I guess you could throw Will Dane there as a 4th halfback. And then, I'll give him 6.5 as well, just because, they had some really promising wins this year, the Hawks, especially towards the latter half of the year, and only just fell behind Carlton on like 3%. So, Carlton, they could have finished higher than Carlton. If you said at the start of the year, then, you would have been dreaming. So, I'll give him 6.5.
Yeah, completely agree. They've actually got too many halfbacks. Like, we were trying to explain this to Curtis that it just isn't going to fit. But I actually have no idea what they're going to do next year because, everyone you just mentioned, Roy, and then throw in Jarman Impey when he returns from injury. It's actually, I have no idea what they're going to do. But I guess you'd rather have that than have no one. All right, moving on to the Blues. that would be stiff. That would be stiff. All right, Carlton. Another tough year for Carlton fans. I will say, I think I said this halfway through the year, but I actually think the Carlton list going into the season was a bit overrated. I just think you look at the teams who made the finals, and I know they've all had a good season under the belt, so it's easier to say it now with hindsight, but I actually still think the list on paper is not as good as those teams. So, yeah, it's really hard because they've supposedly completed their rebuild. Well, that's what they thought anyway, and they are still not even far off teams who aren't even finished bottoming out yet. So, pretty rough for Carlton fans. Feel really bad for them because my NRL team has sort of followed a similar path. So, feel bad for them, but yeah, stiff. to the Blues. Cop Broadbent, BNF Jacob Wiedering, absolute beast. Best young player, Sam Walsh, not even a discussion. Most improved, no idea. So I went with Liam Jones. Don't know if he improved, but everyone was frothing him this year at times. So shout out, he got a fair few votes. My thing. Out of 10, it's a tough one because I reckon I should have actually got our preseason predictions up before we did this, but I actually think this wouldn't have been too far away from where I put them. But I might give them a 4.5 out of 10. I think maybe just I might have put them like 10th or 11th, but yeah, a little bit under, bit of an underachievement, I'd say. But I'm sure Carlton fans would rank it like a 2 out of 10. All right, Roy, what do you make of the Blues season, mate?
Yeah, I mean, you stack up their list at the start of the year to everyone else's, and I think the Blues sort of bottom 6, 7 players every game just aren't the same quality as other teams that are playing finals. So I think it was always going to be tough for them. Blues fans thought, they bring in Zach Williams and suddenly they think they're going to win the premiership. So I think they sort of overestimated their abilities a little bit, considering you've got a few blokes running out there that probably shouldn't be. So BNF, Sammy Walsh, absolute gun of a player, going to win a Brownlow. Most improved, Sammy Walsh, absolute gun of a player, going to win a Norm Smith medal. And best young player, Sammy Walsh, gun young player, going to be captain of the All-Australian team one day. I know he's their whole entire club basically, Sammy Walsh. So yeah, it's no surprise he racked up all three for me there. I just can't be asked trying to give it to anyone else because Walsh is just the only thing going for them at the moment. Obviously, next year they'll be going for finals when they've got Adam Chera and suddenly he's Brownlow favourite after round 1 after setting foot on the park. So, we'll see what happens there. I'm going to give him a 3.5. I had him finishing finals and they were pretty mediocre at the end of the year. So, simple as that. Sammy Walsh all the way. But yeah, everyone else hucks.
Yeah, that's not far from the truth there. Shout out to Stocker as well. Pilch, what do you make of the Blues, mate?
Yeah, well, I saw an interesting Twitter post today where Eddie Betts said that the Blues list this year was as good, if not better. Actually, I think he said it was better than the Crows list that he was a part of that won the minor premiership and played in a grand final in 2017. And to me, that just paints the picture that it is just awful culture at Carlton. They just don't know how to win. Similar with Gold Coast, things stop going their way in a game and they just stop playing. So I think they have serious issues down there. So I've gone and given them a 2 out of 10 because I just can't see what's going to change in the near future. I think Teague was stiff to be sacked as well. And then same with Rowie, the awards, Walsh, and then Daylight.
Yeah, I actually understand what you mean. Pretty surprised by Eddie Betts' comments. I'm not sure if I agree. I do have to say that Adelaide team did overperform what it looked like on paper when you had the likes of Riley Knight terrorising Joel Selwood and stuff. But it's not positive for Carlton. Like you look at this list, Adelaide, Hawthorn, pretty exciting back ends of the and North, exciting at times this year. Look like they could launch next year. Then there's like the likes of Richmond, St Kilda, West Coast all had down years compared to last year. They might bounce back, and then it's sort of like, where does Carlton fit in that mix? And it's not good reading for Carlton fans. So shout out to those listening at home. Richmond, Rowie, we'll let you lead this one off, mate.
This was awesome to see the Tigers finish as low as they did. It was just going to be another year of chucking Richmond up there, assuming they're going to win the premiership. It was basically just a competition for runner-up. But, it was awesome to see them finally fall. They're just one of my most hated teams ever. Nothing more to say. It was just, finishing 12th was just a blessing for the whole comp. Everyone can now get on with their lives. So BNF, it was actually announced the other night, so I'll just give it to the guy who won it, Dylan Grimes. Absolute flop. But, I'll let him have it. Most improved. This one was tough because no one really improved. But I think Liam Baker stood up when it mattered. When a lot of players were down and injured, he sort of, kept on performing consistently, played probably 5 different roles for the whole year. So good on Liam. Seems like a good bloke. One of the many few. Best young player, probably Shay Bolton. We've obviously seen what he can do. I think he made the 22, best young 22. Much deserved, even though absolute nightmare in the end of the season for Supercoach. But that being said, he's an absolute freak. He'll be an absolute freak for them in the future. Hopefully playing that Dusty role, having 20 vital ones and kicking 3. So good on him. But all in all, against, if you're comparing it to expectations, I'll give him like a 2 out of 10. But like, it's not a like, oh my God, what the hell happened 2 out of 10. It's more like they copped a lot of injuries. Their time was coming. Lots of their players starting to get old. So I think, you could have seen this coming, I guess, come second half of the year. Obviously, none of us really did. We didn't want to buy into what's happened just about every year when they've dropped a few and everyone starts doubting them. But yeah, end of the season, fair enough. But if you're stacking up against what I set at the start of the year, which was why I said I thought they were going to finish first, I've got to give them a 2 out of 10.
Yeah, completely agree with you there. Pilch, also not fond of the Tigers, mate. How do you think they went in 2021?
Surprised you didn't call them my beloved Tigers there, mate. But they fell off an absolute cliff. Happens in every sport. Unless your name's Novak Djokovic, you just don't keep winning. Whether it's motivation, whatever, just always happens, and it's happened to them. Thank God. So 1 out of 10, given they were flag favourites going into the year. And then I've got Jaden Short as the BNF. I know Dylan Grimes has already been given it, but I think he was quite stiff to not even feature in the top 3. One of the more consistent halfbacks in the league. And then Shay Bolton, best young player. And then most improved. Slim pickings here, but I've actually given it to Matthew Parker for revitalising his career, coming in and playing some genuine decent games for them when they had a lot of injuries. So good on him.
Yeah, fair enough. MP 400. I have to agree with you there. I've got Jaden Short, best and fairest. Anyone who knows the algorithm knows that it gets on its knees for a halfback. It also gets on its knees for Jack Graham, who I believe came second in their BNF. So he's my best young player, born in 1998, I'm pretty sure. And most improved, I've given it to the 3 question marks that currently sit in the Excel cell. So
Note one.
I'm not giving that one out. Stiff, I think I was down on like the people on 1 vote, and then I'm like, no, I'm not giving this out. They don't deserve it. So yeah, sorry, Richmond fans. Don't mean to rub it in after a bad year, but no one improved. So
I'm sure they'll survive, mate.
Yeah, maybe Damien Hardwick improved in the wife department or something, but that's probably about it. I'll give them a 1 out of 10. Just as Rowie said, we predicted them like top 2 and to come 12th. It's a pretty large discrepancy there. Interested to see what they do next year, or this off season. Actually, interested to see if they trade away people or they just stick fat with the premiership winning boys. But Freo, Pilch, I'm not going to say beloved, but I feel like you don't mind the Freo boys. How do you think they went this year? Almost made the 8, but do you think it was a good season?
Don't mind them at all, mate. I do think it was a good season. I personally didn't expect them to make finals. I think they finished about where I expected them to, but they had a lot of young players show some good signs, like a couple of other teams in this bottom 10, which is always good. MVP, I've actually gone Andy Brayshaw, and I've given the young player to him as well. And then most improved, I've given to Sean Darcy. And 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I will give them a 6.5 out of 10. I would give them a 7, but there were times in the season, like the last round, where it looked like they hadn't maybe improved as much as we expect. But there were times where they looked like a genuine top 8 team. I've got a Sean Darcy clean sweep. Absolutely killed it this year. The second half, he was the best ruckman in the competition without doubt for me. And yeah, obviously Brayshaw and the other boys killed it as well. And Luke Ryan, obviously the algorithm's favourite son, but not good enough to top Sean Darcy, who came tied 12th in my Brownlow for a team that came 10th or 11th, which was pretty good effort. Rowie, what do you make of the Dockers season?
Yeah, I was sort of about where I expected them to finish. Obviously, a lot of young talent coming through. But yeah, obviously, still need to give them time. So to finish 11th on percentage, probably fair enough. So yeah, in terms of BNF, got to recognise the big man, Sean Darcy, killed it back half of the year. Most improved and best young player. I've literally just written down the same thing. I've got three mids, so that's Brayshaw, Chera, Sarong. They can all fit into those categories because they're all obviously weapons. They're all obviously improved a lot this year, and they're all obviously really young. So good on them for taking the competition by storm. And just finishing off really strong. So, unfortunately, yeah, I mean, they had some down games, the Dockers. They had games where they just didn't look competitive whatsoever. But then obviously they had games where they won without five for Walters, most notably the Derby. So, solid for them. Finished just where I expected them to. So, I'm going to give them a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, fair footy. I actually felt really weird saying the Dockers then. I feel like no one says the Dockers, but that is actually their name. The Dockers. The only ship that doesn't dock in Fremantle is the Premiership, is the old gag. But yeah, fair play to Chera leaving, but I really hope the rest of the boys don't leave. Because I know WA is like, it's not like the Gold Coast, but it's hard to build. It's hard for a lot of these interstate teams to build like a good young core of players and not see them all leave. But hopefully they all stay because they've worked hard and deserve some future success. All right, Rowie, your time, mates. Finished in 10th after a surprise top 8 appearance last year. Back out of finals, unfortunately. But as a Saints fan, how do you see the season?
Yeah, well, this year it was all about which was going to be the real St Kilda. Was it the mediocre one or was it the top 8 one? But yeah, it was the mediocre one. I think I ended up having them finish either like 4th or 5th at the start of the year. So, I mean, yeah, it was a very, very ugly start and middle half. We finished off all right, probably in like just top 8 form, like, around 7th to 8th form. But, that being said, disappointing majority of the year. So, yeah, look, just trying to attack it next year, but it was a very deflating year for us Saints fans. Just hate the club a lot of the time. So BNF though, got to go to a man that definitely don't hate. Very much the opposite, Jack Steele. Would do everything for this man. He's an absolute weapon. He's accumulated the most, I believe, MVP votes in the last 2 years. So Mr. Consistent still somehow didn't manage to find his way onto an All-Australian field both of those years. So keep that in mind, All-Australian selection panel. But yeah, he just does just about everything. This year worked on his disposal use as well. So he just, apart from being an absolute tackling machine that racks up 35 and kicks a goal, he also started lasering some targets as well. So absolute freak of a human being, Jack. Most improved was Jack Sinclair. Obviously, just didn't know much about his career last year, but we moved him to halfback, and he probably turned out to be one of our most reliable players off the halfback. I mean, you can put any footballer at halfback, and they're all going to find 20 and play pretty decently. But no, he uses composure really, really well, Sinclair, and he's got all the traits to be a good halfback. So good on him there. And best young player, we Maxi King. Copped so much unnecessary treatment from fans this year. Everyone's saying we've picked the wrong king, blah, blah, blah. And I just, saw a Twitter feed that basically what they did is they showed two players, just their stats, player A, player B. Who would you rather? 91% went player B, and that was Max King. Player A was Ben King. So we didn't choose the right one. We didn't choose the wrong one, sorry. All those fans doubted us, but obviously, Ben's going to have a superb career when he comes to St Kilda as well. So, good on Maxi for getting the Young Player of the Year. But yeah, unfortunately, it's going to have to be a 3 out of 10 for the Saints. Did not live up to expectations at all. But maybe next year we can attack it.
Yeah, apologies if you boys are picking up. There's someone like jumping in my house above my room. It's actually scaring the shit out of me, but the listeners won't hear it because I'll edit it out.
Lucky McCorkadale is getting busy.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to work out what it could be. It must be Campbell doing like burpees or something, but it's weird footy. It's actually like it actually is scary. My whole room's shaking. But Pilch, how do you think the Saints went, mate?
Yeah, well, I too had them in the top four. I watched them against Port last season. I always this game sticks out in my memory for some reason because they came to Adelaide. We were top of the ladder and they absolutely belted us. And I thought they had more to give this year. I thought they were going to improve, and they just did the complete opposite. And I can understand Rowie and many other Saints fans' frustration because I just cannot pinpoint what it is. Like, they've got a good list, so I don't understand it. But nevertheless, giving them a 4 out of 10 and the exact same three players. I had to look at the stats for most improved, and Sinclair was one pleasant surprise there. So racked up some possessions on halfback, and then King best young player as well.
Yeah, fair enough. Obviously mine are going to be completely different. But yeah, gotta agree with you with the Jack Steele BNF came fourth in my Brownlow. Absolutely tore it up. Most improved, I've actually given it to Luke Dunstan, my M8 in Supercoach. Picked up like 15 votes for me, which you can get up to 5 votes for me. So I'm not saying he's going to be like top 10 in the Brownlow, but he did get dropped in the last round. I did notice that.
And then delisted.
Yeah, so I did see that, but he'll be surely someone picks him up, but we'll see. Like, it's pretty. You'd think someone who can rack up like 30 in an AFL game is not going to have to go play. Yeah, true, but surely that's too good for like the VAFA or something. But
Dylan Shields,
we'll see what happens to his career.
He was
best young player
on Sunday. Anyway, sorry.
You're good. Best young player, Nick Caulfield, obviously. It's no brainer for me. No brainer. Don't need to explain that decision. And then I'm going to give them a 4 out of 10 because although they did slide down the ladder, I think some of the teams who shot up into the 8 improved a lot more than we were expecting. And you could sort of forgive them for finishing below the likes of Sydney, for example. So, yeah, hopefully brighter pastures are ahead for you, Rosef. And then into your claim to fame this year, Rowie. West Coast, the final team who missed out on finals. You backed them in to miss it, and they did. Not a good year for them. Really confused where they are right now in terms of whether they're rebuilding, whether they're just going to jump back into the 8 next year. Actually, I'm pretty confused. As Pilch said off air, like, they're sort of a team that I don't even really know what happened to them this year. Didn't really take notice, but fair play to them. Missed out on finals. They actually almost made it, which shocked me, but fair enough. I'll give them a 3 out of 10 just because I don't like them. Nick Nat, best and fairest. I picked him as my All-Australian ruckman. He came 6th in my Brownlow, which is pretty fucked from a ruckman. And then young player and most improved, I gave it to Josh Rotham because they don't have any young players and they don't really have anyone who improves. So he's a player who's not really been given many opportunities before this year. He's been decent in the glimpses before this year, but came in with some injuries and stuff and really nailed down a spot. So, yeah, pretty good player, Josh Rotham. Pilch, what do you make of your... I'm not sure what the opposite of beloved is. It like loathed or something? West Coast Eagles. I know you hate them.
Yeah. Similar-ish to Richmond. The fans had a good run while it lasted, and I think it's done now. Just aging list. I don't even know what to say, apart from I would love to watch that team play without Nick Nat Nui just getting crommed by 80 at Optus Stadium by the Crom 0-22. But anyway, hope to see them win the Wooden Spoon next season. But MVP Nick Nat, and then Josh Rotham can take out most improved and young player of the year, and I've given them a 4 out of 10. And actually, I'm changing that to a 2.
Yeah, shout out to all West Coast Eagle fans watching at home. Yeah, Nick Nat's absolutely cooked. Like in the last game against Brisbane, I think he had like 12 clearances or something and 20 hit outs to advantage. He was just catching it out of the ruck and just steaming 30 metres and sending it down. He's a beast. Rowie, thoughts on the Eagles, mate?
Yeah, as I've well documented throughout the year, I've predicted the downfall. Many call me crazy. Some call me to get sectioned, but at the end of the day, I was right. So stick it up, yeah. So, yeah, the Eagles have fallen. They've been shot down. So it's brilliant to see. Everyone hates them. Just the aging list, I didn't see them having it in them this year. I thought all this young talent was going to overtake them, and they did. So it was absolutely unreal to see. BNF, though, Nick Nat, obviously freak of the comp, arguably one of the best ruckmen in there. Most improved, no one, but I'll give it to Josh Rotham just because he played a few games. Good on him. But you can stick anyone on a half back and they'll be all right. As I said, best young player. I mean, this guy has so much talent, and he started off the season on fire, but they moved him around a bit and just killed him. But Oscar Allen can be anything if he plays in the right position. But, you know, if you play for West Coast and you're a young player, start looking into some TAFE courses. I'll give them a 3 out of 10 as well, because obviously the quality in their list, they missed out big time. I did predict it, but, you know, 3 out of 10 West Coast, goodbye.
Yeah, you're actually not wrong. They better compensate. Liam Duggan. They've ruined that man's career. Could have been a star, but now he's just a 6 disposal winger or something. He doesn't even play a position. He just stands there and just doesn't get the ball. yeah.
Mine's grass.
Poor Liam Duggan. Could be a Jet.
Yeah.
Gold Coast, go pick him up.
Then.
No.
Judging by that explanation.
No, he's a wet mate. The one game they gave him a sniff in like round 6.
Yeah.
Man had like 35 or something.
I do
tore it
recall
up.
that.
Yeah, because he was in my Supercoach team and it was the worst pickup ever.
It's a miracle! Oh, yeah! What about that one? Unbelievable! Balotelli, Aguero! Crowd cheers. Here's Siddle.